My name's Eric Olson. My guest today is Joan Treppa, an advocate for those who have been wrongfully convicted. Joan, why are you so passionate about this issue?
The idea that people are in prison for crimes they didn't commit, frankly, really bothers me. And I felt like I needed to do something in order to change what was happening.
Okay.
So I educated myself. I looked at this issue, and I don't have any legal background, but even as a layperson, I saw that there was something terribly wrong. As a society, I think we want to believe the system works every time, that our judicial system comes through and sentences the guilty people and keeps the innocent people out of prison. That could not be farther from the truth.
I know you read a book called The Mon Files Conspiracy. It's a conviction of 6 innocent men, and you wanted to be more involved with that. Why did you read that book?
Well, it was given to me by one of the authors, actually. It's a documentation of the facts in a large case in Wisconsin. It's been deemed the largest travesty of justice in Wisconsin history, actually. I was very intrigued by it. And the story talks about 6 men who were wrongfully convicted of killing a co-worker at a paper mill in Wisconsin in 1992.
Okay.
The reality is 5 of those men were alibi witnesses for the one that was targeted as their lead suspect. There was no physical evidence presented at trial. There were no eyewitnesses that were present at any crime. One man ended up being exonerated 5.5 years later on a writ of habeas corpus by a senior federal district judge. And I'd like to read to you a short statement of what the judge ruled in the case. A guilty verdict required the jury to pile speculation on top of inferences that were drawn from other inferences. Such a verdict is not rational. And what this means is that there was hearsay evidence introduced into the trial, and that generally is not used because it's not reliable. When you've got a he said, she said scenario, things get lost in translation.
Now, the author, how's the author connected to this? Do they know one of the 6 men, or why did the author write the book?
That's a good point. One of the authors, the one that presented me with the book, is actually a former brother-in-law of the man who was exonerated. And he has a friend who has authored some other books. So they got together to put this book together.
Okay. My question is, what actions have you taken yourself to bring awareness to the story, of these 6 men?
Well, I started out by, I read the book, but I was not satisfied to just go by what the book said. And I needed to learn more about this case. So I met the other authors, and I met the exonerated man, and we had conversations, and I got a better understanding of what exactly happened. So I ended up bringing 15 books home from Wisconsin to Minnesota. I sold all 15 in a month's time. Wow. And I kept getting more and more books and selling them, and people were very intrigued with this story. I set up a very successful book signing at Mount Olivet Church in Minneapolis, and that prompted some other book signings that I coordinated. I went over to Wisconsin and got more involved over there. I helped to put together a yearly rally on the day of the convictions. So every year we go and march in remembrance of these men. And it's pretty much to let them know they haven't been forgotten. I also had a song written. I coordinate those efforts. And let's remember here that I don't have expertise in any of these arenas.
Okay.
But I'm very good at networking and finding people who can do that, who can do these things. And so that's pretty much what my role is.
Well, we were talking right beforehand, and what really interests me in this whole situation is you even managed to get a private investigator, on board. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, we'll call him Johnny. I met him at my mailbox.
Okay.
I was picking up my mail one day, and he drives up with a neighbor. And I didn't know who he was, but we got to talking. He was a very friendly guy. We got to talking, and I did what I usually do. I'm talking about this case. I'm sharing my feelings about it, my opinions. And as I'm talking, he's looking at me very intently, and he says to me, I was in law enforcement for 30 years. And I said, oh, well, you're probably on the other side of what my opinion is of this case. And he said, I've seen it all. I've seen good guys, I've seen bad guys. And he said, I'm one of the good guys. So at that point, we started talking about something else, and they went their way. They went up to the neighbor's house. I went inside my house, and I just had this nagging feeling that kept telling me, give this guy a book. Because I was selling books at that time as well. I really got to know the authors really well. I was selling books and bringing awareness of this case to Minnesota. So it kept nagging me, give him a book. So I said, okay. I brought the book over. Turns out Johnny answered the door. I said, here, take this and read it. And he said, well, how much? And I said, I'm not asking for any money. Just take it and read it. Because of your background, I want your opinion.
Okay.
So he pulled out his wallet, and he looked at the book, at the price, gave me the money, and said, here, take this and give a book to someone that can't afford it. I can afford it.
Very interesting.
And I knew at that point that I had found an advocate in Wisconsin.
And my understanding, he did take the book.
He did take the book.
He did it.
He took it home, and he read it 3 times.
Wow.
He showed up at my door a week later, and he's pounding on the door, and he's looking like a wild man. I answered the door, let him in.
Even though he looked like he was wild.
Right. And he started just ranting about, I read this thing 3 times. I couldn't find this. How did this happen? Where was this evidence? Just all of these things. He just kept saying, where were these guys in the mill? Time is evidence. Time is whether they could have done it or not.
Yeah, so he was really intrigued, and he was trying to dig in himself.
Yes,
and couldn't figure it out.
I'm standing there and I'm thinking, wow, this guy who has all this experience is asking these questions. It's not just me. It's not just these authors. It's someone who's been involved in law enforcement, from being a cop to being a private investigator in the Army. He's asking questions.
Okay. And did he join your, crusade? I mean,
immediately. Immediately. He says, I have to go, but call those authors, get them over here, call the exonerated man, get him over here, we got to have a meeting. And so we did.
And we did. And
Yes.
he's been helping ever since then.
Yes, he has.
Okay. What ties does the Monfields, case have to Minnesota?
Well, John and I were instrumental in getting a very large, prestigious law firm in Minnesota involved. with this case.
Okay.
It's a firm that is large enough that it will be able to pursue this case very effectively, and they have actually agreed to pursue this on a pro bono cases.
Nice.
On
Very
a
nice.
pro bono basis.
Okay.
So one other thing that I did was I started writing to the men themselves. I wanted to let them know I was out here, that I was advocating for them, and I was committed to doing what I could to help them. And some of the men, from what I had read, some if not all of the men were kind of outdoorsy guys.
Are you speaking the 5
Yes,
men?
the 5 men in prison. They love the outdoors, and I wanted to know how I could bring the indoors into that 5x7 cell. My son wrote a wonderfully adventurous and funny story about his adventures on the Appalachian Trail.
Okay.
So what I did is I had him send them signed copies of his book through his publishing company to sort of break the ice with these men and sort of give them that sense of what it is to be outdoors again. I've pretty much become a sounding board or a voice for them because they feel they have none. They sit in a 5x7 prison cell and they feel hopeless, they feel helpless, they feel like no one listens to them, they feel like everyone believes they're guilty because they were convicted by a jury and a judge.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what that feeling is, to know that I'm sitting in a prison cell and everyone hates me because they think I murdered someone.
And it's a life sentence.
It's a life sentence for all of them.
For all
yes.
of them. For the 5 that are still
Yes.
in there.
Yes.
Okay. Did they write back to you?
Yes, they started writing back to me. 2 of them are very prolific writers. These men, we have to remember that these are men that committed no crime. They are just like you and I. They are normal people that were working blue-collar jobs, trying to make a living, raising families, just like you and I. They're very smart. They knew their jobs. And their letters are absolutely wonderful. I had one man write to me right before my birthday. He actually researched when my birthday was, and he sent me the most wonderful letter I've ever gotten, just because of what I've done for him. These men are so grateful that people actually listen to them and actually believe they're innocent. And one thing that any person in prison, whether they're there because of committing a crime or not, one thing they will tell you that keeps them going is getting letters from outside.
Outside contact.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It gives them hope.
You know, I was just thinking about if any of our viewers wanted to get the book themselves, how could they go ahead and buy a copy?
The books can be purchased through the website 6innocentmen.com. They can also be purchased on Amazon.
You recently started working with the Innocence Project of Minnesota. What does that organization actually do?
Well, they work to keep innocent people from being wrongfully convicted, and they also work to free those who've been incarcerated for crimes they didn't commit. I'm helping currently to set up a program to create awareness about the Innocence Project, because a lot of people do not know they exist or what they do.
Yeah, 'cause I definitely didn't till now. You know, so I'm hoping that a lot more individuals will maybe go on Google and look up some of this. Okay. I mean, out of curiosity, I haven't heard of this, organization. How many people, in Minnesota, do you know, are wrongfully convicted? Do they work with?
Well, they have 3 successes. of people they've exonerated here in Minnesota. They work with hundreds of other cases. They get many calls a month for people claiming innocence.
I imagine so.
They work with mostly DNA cases, but they will also take cases where clear evidence of innocence is present. The Innocence Project is trying to put forth a bill for Minnesota to create compensation for people who have been wrongfully convicted in Minnesota. Currently, there is no compensation. Every state is different. Every state has their own branch of Innocence Project.
If they find out that they're innocent, they release them, they just say, thank you for your time, and they don't give them a penny.
Correct.
Wow, that's insane.
So these people are forced with not only the trauma of being incarcerated wrongly, but now they have to go out into a new world and figure it out, plus figure out a way to support themselves.
Now, I know the 6 men who were, tried and convicted in Wisconsin court system. Does Wisconsin have that same situation where, if you get released, if they get any kind of compensation?
Wisconsin has a compensation law. You get $5,000 per year of incarceration up to a cap of $25,000.
Okay. So how can people watching at home help out?
Well, there's a few ways you can help. You can educate yourself about this issue. It's very important that people know this happens. It can happen to any one of us. This is a national and global issue. It happens all too often. People need to be aware that it happens. Monetary donations to the Innocence Project of Minnesota is always welcome because it's a nonprofit. It depends on funding from the public, so that's one way you can help. They are also looking for volunteers of people, whether you're professional or lay people like myself. You can volunteer your services. That's a very valuable asset to them. And you can go directly to the website if you want to either contact them about volunteering or making a monetary donation.
Okay.
And the website is impn.org. If you'd like to participate in helping with the 6 Innocent Men case, that's another avenue you can send donations to. This law firm is involved. They are going to spend an enormous amount of money on this case because of the 5 men, plus having to travel to Wisconsin to pursue this case. We are collecting donations to help them with travel expenses.
Okay.
And the website for that is 6innocentmen.org, and you can donate right on that website.
6innocentmen.org?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I just want people to realize that they should be empowered to find their passion. I'm proof that one person can make a difference in the lives of many people.
I have to thank you, Joan, for sharing your time and your story with us today. We really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We've been talking with Joan Treppa about her efforts to bring justice to those who are serving time for crimes that they did not commit. You can learn more at 6innocentmen.com and IPMN.org. I'm Eric Olson. Thanks for joining us.